There is a silent war we each fight. One not on battlefields, but in boardrooms, bedrooms, and quiet corners of our minds. It is the war of value. Every day, people are silently categorizing you. Consciously or not, they're deciding, are you essential or replaceable, a necessity or a novelty, a luxury or just an option? And here's the truth, you teach people how to see you. But how? Not by shouting louder, not by proving harder, but by becoming deeper. A rarity. Luxury is not about money. It's about perception, presence, and self-possession. Let me take you through the first 5 of 9 profound keys that will shift how people experience you, not as a convenience, but as something they feel privileged to encounter. There is a difference between being seen and being truly recognized. To be recognized is not to be merely acknowledged for what is visible, but to be felt for what is essential. It is an experience of depth, of resonance, of soul. The world does not seek more noise, it seeks substance, even if it doesn't always realize it consciously. To be seen as a luxury, one must not strive to shine like others, but rather to reflect one's own inner light with uncompromising clarity. Not borrowed light, not dimmed light, but the light that arises from the deepest recognition of who you are. A diamond buried in the earth for centuries does not scream to be seen. It is what it is. Compressed time, pressure, and clarity made manifest. It does not apologize for its brilliance, and yet it does not demand attention. It simply is, and by being fully itself, it becomes irresistible. Such is the nature of a person who claims their identity. Not for performance, not for applause, but because to be anything else would be betrayal of the self. To know yourself is not a cliché, but a confrontation. It is to face the parts of you that were hidden, shamed, or fragmented, and to stitch them back together into a whole. The luxury is not the polish, it is the process. It is not the suit or the fragrance, it is the invisible posture of someone who no longer needs to ask for permission to exist. I once worked with a woman in her mid-30s, brilliant and diligent, the first to arrive and the last to leave, and yet overlooked, underestimated. "Why do they keep passing me over?" she asked, almost in a whisper. She had been performing a version of herself that fit into others' expectations, hoping that enough effort would translate into recognition. But recognition doesn't follow effort. It follows essence. When I asked her if she was operating from her truth or from a script she'd been handed, the silence in the room was louder than any answer she could give. Over time, she began peeling back the layers. Not just at work, but in how she spoke, how she dressed, how she moved through the world. She stopped needing to be chosen and started choosing herself. And then, almost like clockwork, others began responding differently. Not because she became louder, but because she became clearer. Clarity carries a frequency. It is not noise, it is signal. It tells the world, this is what I am, and this is what I am not. And that distinction is where power lies. Most people operate in a fog of indecision, afraid to stand firm because standing firm might invite rejection. But in reality, indecision invites dismissal. People are drawn not to those who conform, but to those who know. Those who walk into a room and do not ask silently, "Will I be accepted?" but instead emanate the silent statement, "This is who I am." Luxury is not about price. It is about rarity. And what is rarer than someone who does not shapeshift to please, someone who stands still while the rest of the world bends, someone who has defined themselves from the inside out? That is the luxury we all long for, an encounter with the authentic. The person who has suffered through doubt, chaos, heartbreak and fear, and who has emerged not desperate for validation, but anchored in self-respect. But it is not a quick journey. To claim your identity with fierce clarity is not an Instagram post or a vision board. It is daily practice. It is choosing again and again not to shrink when misunderstood. It is reminding yourself that popularity is not the same as purpose, that applause can be deceptive, that sometimes the path of authenticity is a lonely one, until others who speak your language begin to find you, and they will. Because clarity attracts its own kind. There is no algorithm for soul, there is no shortcut to self. You must dig, you must unravel, you must return, and then return again. But when you finally stand in the stillness of your own being, unshaken by trends, untouched by noise, that is when you begin to feel the quiet power of luxury. And people feel it too. They may not be able to name it, but they know it. They know when they are in the presence of someone who does not bend to be chosen. They know when they are looking at someone who reflects light without needing to perform. They know when they are in the presence of clarity. And clarity, my friend, is unforgettable. Need is a subtle chain. It binds more than we realize. Not to others, but to our own illusions. We think that by proving our love, our loyalty, our readiness to serve, we elevate ourselves in the eyes of others. But in reality, we often do the opposite. We cheapen the very thing we wish to make sacred, our presence. Emotional detachment is not coldness. It is not withdrawal. It is the deep inner understanding that your value does not increase with your desperation. It is the quiet discipline of offering yourself, not from hunger, but from fullness. People chase what they cannot easily grasp. That is a truth rooted not in manipulation, but in psychology. The mind treasures what it must earn. We are built to value effort, to desire what is rare, to assign meaning to what resists easy access. What happens then, when you give yourself away too freely? You do not become more loved, you become more accessible. And in that accessibility you become easily forgotten. The soul craves contact with the extraordinary. And what is extraordinary is never desperate for validation. Think of the people who left the deepest imprint on your life. Were they the ones who clung to you? Or were they the ones who stood in their dignity, offering their presence like a rare gift, not a free sample? A vintage wine loses none of its worth because someone walks away from it. But if that same wine is handed out in plastic cups at a gas station, its magic is lost, not because the wine has changed, but because its context has. Your context, your self-possession, your restraint is part of what makes you feel valuable to others. I once knew a man who was infatuated with a woman he believed to be the one. In his desperation, he texted her constantly, each message growing more anxious, more pleading. Why won't she respond, he asked. He had given her everything: time, compliments, attention, immediate replies. What he didn't realize was that in doing so, he had emptied himself. He had erased the space in which curiosity grew. She didn't pull away because she didn't care. She pulled away because the dynamic offered no mystery, no tension, no room to desire. He had handed himself over so completely that there was nothing left to long for. We forget that longing is sacred. It creates space for depth. But depth only emerges when two souls are not tangled in constant demand. Emotional detachment is the art of being present without collapsing into the other. It is the ability to care without craving, to show up without surrendering your center. When you offer someone your time, your love, your attention, it should come with weight, with intention. If it is always available, it is taken for granted. The sun is worshipped, not because it shines every moment, but because it sets. The absence, the distance, the silence between appearances, these are what make presence meaningful. Luxury does not beg to be invited, it waits. It lets others come closer, not because it needs them to, but because it trusts that what is valuable will be seen, eventually. The oak tree does not uproot itself to chase the passer-by. It stands still, ancient and silent. And those who are ready to rest in its shade come of their own will. So too must you learn to remain rooted in your own inner life. Do not chase, do not explain, do not plead. Offer your presence when it is sacred to do so, and when it is not, withhold it with grace. This is not a tactic, it is not a game. It is a transformation. When you detach emotionally, you are not withdrawing love, you are reclaiming power. You are moving from being reactive to being responsive. You are learning that your heart is not a product to be marketed, but a treasure to be discovered. You must learn to trust the silence, to rest in the unknown, to allow others to miss you, to wonder, to work for your energy. And when they do, when they return, not out of convenience but out of conviction, you will know that your presence has become a luxury, not because you made it so with clever tricks or feigned indifference, but because you finally understood that you are not here to be consumed but cherished, not here to be chosen in haste but remembered with reverence. Your detachment is not distance, it is devotion to your own sacredness. And from that space, everything you offer becomes a gift worth waiting for. We live in a world where image often shouts, while depth only whispers. Everywhere we look, there is pressure to present, to polish, to perfect. But there is a quiet truth buried beneath this noise. True value is not found in what is seen, but in what is sensed. Appearance may capture a glance, but it is depth that holds attention, that draws people back, that lingers in memory long after the image fades. The essence of luxury has never been in mere decoration, it has always been in dimension, a richness of being that cannot be replicated or rushed. Too many people confuse presentation with presence. They decorate their exterior with fashion, filters and flair, hoping it will compensate for an inner emptiness they're too afraid to face. But image without substance is a fragile mask. It crumbles under pressure, and worse, it repels those who seek real connection. People may admire your image for a moment, but they will only stay for your truth. The most unforgettable individuals are not the most beautiful or the loudest, but those whose outer world mirrors a deep and cultivated inner life. Think of a book whose cover draws you in. You may pick it up because of the artwork, the title, the shimmer of gold on its spine, but you do not love it because of how it looks on your shelf. You love it because of what it does to you. How its words echo inside you, how its truths feel familiar, how its wisdom reshapes your understanding. You love it because it offers something of substance, something that moves you. People are the same. We are not remembered because we are seen. We are remembered because we are felt. Depth is not a talent, it is a discipline. It is the result of choosing growth over comfort, introspection over performance, truth over popularity. It is found in the books you read, the questions you ask, the pain you are willing to process, the mistakes you examine instead of hide. It is built in silence, in solitude, in the long nights where you choose not to distract yourself but to understand yourself. Every layer you add to your soul becomes a silent language others instinctively recognize, even if they cannot explain why they are drawn to you. Real depth shows itself in your ability to listen without needing to speak, to be present without demanding attention, to walk into a room and radiate confidence not from your outfit, but from the way you meet people's eyes with warmth and steadiness. The most luxurious presence is not loud, it is resonant. It hums at a frequency that others instinctively respect. You cannot fake it. You cannot shortcut it. You must become it. Investing in depth means learning to see beneath the surface of everything, your own emotions, other people's behavior, the systems and patterns that shape our lives. It means developing emotional intelligence, not just knowing your feelings, but understanding where they come from and how they shape your actions. It means seeing how your pain has shaped your strength, and how your shadows hold wisdom just as your light does. It is about knowing that your worth is not in how many admire you, but in how few truly understand you and still choose to stay. Speak more carefully, learn languages that stretch your thinking, engage with ideas that challenge your assumptions. Travel not just to escape, but to understand. Read books that make you feel small in the best possible way. Sit with discomfort until it teaches you something new. These are not just hobbies or self-improvement tactics. These are the building blocks of a rare soul. People may not consciously realize why they are drawn to someone with depth, but they always are. We are wired to seek substance, to crave meaning, to hunger for connection that goes beyond the surface. A person who has done the work to cultivate inner depth becomes a mirror for others. They reflect truth, possibility, and hope. They carry a silent authority that does not beg to be recognized. It simply is. Luxury, in its truest sense, is never hollow. It is heavy with intention. It carries history, thought, and the weight of silent craftsmanship. When you begin to live that way, when you stop performing and start embodying, you become something more than a brand. You become an experience. And experiences are never forgotten. There is a sacredness in limitation. Not all things are meant to be shared with everyone, and not all spaces are meant to be entered by all. This is not an act of arrogance, it is an act of intention. When you begin to understand the true value of your energy, your time, your attention, you stop scattering them like confetti at the feet of those who do not know what it costs you to give. You become selective, not out of pride, but out of a quiet reverence for the person you are becoming. There is a quiet power in being unavailable. In a world that screams for attention, that confuses noise with worth, to be selective is to reclaim your sovereignty. It is to say, I know who I am, and I do not offer myself cheaply. Selectivity is not about playing games. It is not about being cold or distant. It is about living with discernment. The most expensive diamonds are not locked in display cases because they are better than others. They are protected because of their rarity. Their worth is not just in their composition, but in their preservation. This is the truth about people too. When you are everywhere, you are easily replaced. When you are always available, your presence begins to lose meaning. The human mind is wired to assign value through scarcity. We desire what we cannot easily access. We admire what we must earn. If someone can enter your life without effort, without awareness, without intention, they will often treat you as though you are disposable. But when you become a person who chooses with care, who invites slowly, who shares deliberately, you send a different signal. I am not here to be consumed. I am here to be respected. Consider a party where the guest list is open to all. Anyone can come, the door is wide, and the energy becomes diluted. Now imagine walking into a space where only a select few have been invited. Suddenly the air feels charged, not because of status, but because of intention. It feels special because it was not given to everyone. This principle is alive in every area of life. When you stop saying yes from guilt, from habit, from fear of being disliked, and start saying yes from alignment, your life begins to shift. You create an energetic field around you that says, this space is sacred. Not everyone gets to stand in it. There is strength in kindness, yes, but there is even greater strength in restraint. You can be warm without being wide open. You can be compassionate without becoming a container for other people's chaos. Your energy is not infinite, and those who mistake your openness for availability will keep taking until there is nothing left of you to protect. To cultivate an aura of selectivity is not to shut the world out. It is to let the right parts of it in, with time, with discernment, with devotion to your own becoming. We are not meant to be everything to everyone. and we should not feel guilty for honoring that truth. You were not born to be universally liked. You were born to be deeply, authentically yourself. And that version of you, the true one, the powerful one, is not meant for every room. It is meant for the rooms that call to your soul, that reflect your values, that match your vision. When you align your yes with your truth, your life becomes a living filter. What does not serve falls away. What is meant for you stays. Let people wonder where you are. Let them notice your absence. Let them feel your presence, not by how often you show up, but by the strength of who you are when you do. Say more by doing less. Offer less, but make every offering matter. There is a beauty in restraint, a refinement in selectivity that cannot be faked. It must be lived. Those who value you will not resent your boundaries. They will rise to meet them. And those who disappear were never meant to stay. Your light is not meant to be blinding. It is meant to be a beacon for those who are seeking something real. And realness, by its nature, is rare. So choose with care, choose with courage, and above all remember, what is rare is not only seen, it is sought. There is a language deeper than words. It is spoken not through the mouth but through the body, through the eyes, through the spaces between actions. This is the language of self-respect, and once learnt, it speaks louder than any declaration, any demand, any defense of worth. To radiate self-respect is not to shout your value from rooftops. It is to live as if your worth is beyond question. It is the silence that does not need to be filled, the stillness that is stronger than storm. Luxury in its truest form does not ask to be recognized. It does not chase validation or beg for permission. It simply is. It exists in presence, in poise, in the quiet refusal to settle for anything less than what is aligned with truth. In the same way, self-respect is not loud. It does not need to convince. It reveals itself in how you walk into a room, shoulders relaxed but steady, gaze soft but unwavering. It shows in how you say no, in how you leave when staying would cost your soul, in how you let silence fall where once you might have over-explained. The woman I once worked with had been in a relationship that drained her. For years she pleaded for change, begged to be seen, to be loved in the way she deserved. And then one day something shifted. Not in her partner, but in her. She did not yell. She did not fight. She simply packed her things, walked out the door, and never looked back. That silence was not weakness. That stillness was not surrender. It was power. It was the quiet eruption of self-respect, finally claiming its space. And that was when she became untouchable. We live in a world that often teaches us to earn our place, to prove, to persuade, to perform. But you do not earn self-respect, you reclaim it. And when you carry it within you, the world begins to respond. It is not magic, it is alignment. People sense it, even if they cannot name it. They step more carefully in your presence. They watch what they say. They consider your boundaries not as obstacles, but as invitations to rise. Because when you respect yourself, you teach others how to treat you, without ever having to say a word. This doesn't mean you never bend, or that you move through life guarded. Self-respect is not rigidity. It is fluid and alive. It is not a wall, it is a current, guiding you toward what honors you and away from what diminishes you. And it is found in the smallest gestures, in how you speak about yourself when no one is listening, in whether you keep promises to yourself, in whether you choose peace over chaos, even when the chaos is familiar. These are not grand dramatic choices. They are quiet revolutions, and they accumulate. The world will test your self-respect. Again and again it will ask you to compromise, to settle, to accept less than what your soul knows is right. And it is in these moments that your power is forged. Not in the moments when everything flows easily, but in the moments when you stand still and say no. Not with anger, not with fear, but with a kind of internal knowing that cannot be shaken. That knowing is the birthplace of dignity. It is where luxury begins, not in price, not in prestige, but in presence. To carry yourself with self-respect is to become the standard, not only for how others treat you, but for how they see themselves. You become a mirror in which people glimpse their own unresolved truths. Some will be drawn to that, others will recoil. Let them. You are not here to be comfortable for others, you are here to be true to yourself, and that truth, once embodied, reshapes everything around you. There will be times when the world doesn't reward your self-respect immediately. You may lose relationships, opportunities, approval. But what you gain, clarity, freedom, alignment, is worth more than all of it combined. You don't need everyone to understand you. You only need to no longer betray yourself. And as you begin to live this way, not perfectly, but intentionally, you will notice a shift. The spaces you once had to fight to belong to, you will no longer crave. The people who once needed explanation, you will let go in peace. And where once you shrank, you will now expand, not out of ego, but out of a quiet devotion to who you've become. That is the real luxury, the life that grows from self-respect, not loud, not flashy, but deep, grounded, radiant. A life where you don't have to argue for your worth, because you embody it. And that embodiment speaks in every gesture, in every glance, in every graceful step forward. These are the first 5 keys, but the transformation has just begun. In the next segment, we'll unlock the final 4. How to shape your narrative, signal your standards, embody elegance in pressure, and anchor your value in every space you enter. Remember, you are not here to be liked, you are here to be valued. You are not here to be chosen, you are here to be revered. You are not an option. You are the experience they never forget.